News Channel 3's Tavarius Haywood joins us live in Portage with the details on why the judge said no.
Here on this cafe.
Tavarius, is everything okay?
Okay.
Our government leaders have abandoned me.
Are you the owner?
$4 trillion of stimulus money. They gave it to who? Special interest groups and campaign donors. I'm Dave Morse. I own the place.
So what's going on?
What's going on? You know what's going on.
Tell me. You tell me.
Hey, we got a government that has taken the stimulus money. They gave it to special campaign donors. They gave it to special interests. They abandoned me, and they have put me in a position where I have to fight back. Okay?
So do you feel that this is the right thing to do?
Absolutely. I feel everybody needs to stand up. Hey, listen, there was enough money to give every family in this country $20,000 to go home for 2 months. They chose to give it to special interests and campaign donors, the Kennedy Space Center, and they abandoned us. So you could have given me money. I'd gladly walk away for 60 days and let this virus settle down. I'm not going to do it alone. Okay?
Are you going to continue to violate the state's orders and stay open?
This is a state order. This isn't an order. This is a conspiracy. This is a tyranny.
What do you want to tell other restaurant owners who...
Wake up. Stand up. This is America. Be free. I got patriots coming out supporting me the last 2 days. You know what? It's a great thing. Wake up. This is America. Don't let them ramrod you. This is crazy when you turn around and you watch what's going on West Orange Avenue, the big department stores, the train station, the airports, side by side eating meals for 4 hours. And you're going to blame me? Come on. Come on. This is not right, and you guys know it. Everybody knows it. Stand up, America. Give us the money to shut this thing down and calm this virus, but don't take it out on a select few.
Is there anything else you want to add, sir?
That's it, brother.
All right.
I'm glad you listened to me. Thank you.
When the only constant in life is change, you need to be ready. This is the Man-Made Survival Show.
Hello everyone, my name is Jose Prado of Man-Made Survival. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel and watching this video. I really do appreciate it because we're going to be talking about a very important subject, which is the economy, okay? And as you saw the intro video that I did for this one, is that this person came out, you know, on live TV, and he's telling the news people, or you know, pretty much the entire state of Michigan or whoever that channel reaches, that they are the ones that being left out. They're the ones targeted. Okay, they have to rise up and they have to do something about it. Otherwise, their way of life is going to be completely destroyed, and it's all because of the lockdowns and the measures that the government is putting on them. Some places are worse than others, but the I guess you can say the common denominator in all of this is that Americans are waking up. They're getting fed up with this, not just with the lockdowns, with the elections, and you know everything that they've been saying about the ballots and everything like that. There is an awakening that is happening in the American people, and all of that is going to drive it to where he doesn't really matter who's in power. They're going to know that the American people are fed up with it, and they might get voted out. Hopefully they get voted out. You know, we go through the peaceful means of all of this, and we get rid of the people who do not want to help the people that they're supposed to be working for. All right, so a lot of things are going on where many Americans did not think in a million years that this would happen here. Things that are happening in third world nations, or that has been happening for centuries, are starting to happen here in the United States. And it's something that I've been warning for many months, and a lot of people did not trust me, or a lot of people did not listen to me. The ones that were listening, they had arguments that was never going to happen in America, and here we are. Okay, so it's very important that we pay attention now and that we take the necessary steps for us to be prepared for all of this. Something that I have noticed here in the headlines that I'm going to be showing you, that I've listened to, that I've read, that's in the news, everything is that they're repeatedly saying we're experiencing a depression that we have not seen since the Great Depression. Okay, and what I want to make emphasis is in the word since. When I look at it, and it kind of clicked in my head today, we have not seen this since the Great Depression, then that means that we had 90 years to prepare. It's the same thing that I've been telling everyone here in this channel. If you haven't been here any length of time, you know that I've said, right, that we have we have a long time between each period when something happens. For example, 9/11, that happened 19 years ago. That means that you've had 19 years to prepare for the next terror attack. Or you want to take it to 2008, the previous financial depression that we had, you've had 12 years to prepare. So what I want to do with this podcast, what I want to do with this community of preppers that I'm starting under the Man Survival flag, is that we have to create a culture of people who will be prepared at all times. It doesn't matter what happens. Okay, for example, with this whole entire great reset and this dark winter that has been talking about, that I've been reporting on, that the World Economic Forum has been coming together to make plans, they would not be able to be as successful making those plans or actually, advancing them or applying them if we had a culture, if we had the majority of American people having the prepper mentality. Because if everyone in the country had at least 2 years worth of food, okay, they had strategic locations where they were set up, where their houses would be set up, okay, instead of being in the suburbs or just in a quarter acre lot that cost a bunch of money. Instead of that, we'll have a bigger house that had a river running through it, a fertile land, and have everything set up ready for them to just jump on being self-reliant. That would be a lot better, and it would really slow down the reset or any type of attack that anybody would have against the United States of America. So that is what I want to do with Man Survival. That is the far end goal, and I need your help. Please share this information with everybody that you know. Please help us grow, because I have a lot of goals that I want to accomplish, but I cannot do them without you. So please share this on your social media. It doesn't matter what you use, whether it's TikTok, Brighteon.com, Brighteon.social, Twitter, Facebook, Parler, whatever it is. We're in all the social media, or at least most of them. All right. So you have the opportunity to share this with friends and family, because this could potentially be life-saving. All right. I've been talking about this issue for a while now, and hopefully you listen to what I had to say and you prepare for it. But I'm going to be talking about it again today, because there's different things going on all at once as far as the economy goes, but we have different stages. One is global, one is national, one is what rich people are doing, and one is what the middle class and lower class are doing and how they're being affected. Okay, because all of this are being affected differently. For example, the people on a global scale, all the nations around the world, they're having problems, which is something that I'm going to be showing you here in just a second. The United States, each nation is doing its own thing, but since I'm here in America, I'm going to tell you what's going on in America. All right, how the dollar is being destroyed. Some rich people have come out and talked about what they're doing, the steps that they're taking, because they're seeing hyperinflation over the horizon. They don't know how fast it's going to happen, but the steps that they're taking is shielding them from a hyperinflation type of environment. So it's very important that we pay attention to that, and how the middle class and lower class are being affected, because with all the lockdowns, with people being laid off, with people being fired, with hours being cut back, with unemployment ending, with all these things that are happening all at once, certain sections of the country are being affected differently. All right, so that's why it's important for us to be prepared, for us to pay attention. Yes, there's still very many Americans employed, but there's a lot more Americans, there's still millions of Americans who are unemployed. And the only reason that we have not seen widespread panic is because there's still people working. It's not like it's 100% unemployment rate. All right, even though the people that pretty much want to destroy the world, they will love that to happen. Okay, but the point is that we need to take the steps now. I hope you have listened to all the podcasts that I've done about the Great Reset and the dark winter, because a lot of Americans today, they're going to their dark winter. And I just want to refresh your memory on what that is. It's not so much the flu virus, which happened in that video, or in this case, coronavirus, as we're experiencing here in the country, but it's the collapse of the supply chain. If you want to have real freedom, be free from the supply chain. Don't depend on the supply chain. and the supply chain, as I've mentioned here in the past, but for the people who are new to this channel, what the supply chain is, it's not just you going to the grocery store and then, you know, what trickles back from that, from starting from the farms to where you buy it at the grocery store shelf, but it's the grocery stores, the power, and the water. All those three is the supply chain, because all three of those supply a service, and if any one of those three was to be taken away from you, your standard of living would greatly decrease. If the water would stop running from your taps, or it was contaminated like it happened in Michigan, well, I think it was in Michigan, Flint, Michigan, that those people were affected greatly. Very many people had to move away. The ones that couldn't had to stay there and endure, and they had to live off bottled water. So yeah, that decreased their life standard, or you know, their standard of living. The other one is power. We know and we understand that if we have an EMP, over 90% of the country would perish within 24 hours. I showed you that video in this past holiday. And the third one is the supply chain. If somebody was to control the supply chain, all right, then they would dictate what you would have to do. And they're doing it right now. If you remember a few videos back, I did warn you that somebody from the supply chain of a major distribution center said that they were going to start imposing limits on goods and other stuff after Thanksgiving, and it did happen. So that little piece of intel that I got from somebody that knows, that, you know, that works there, actually did come out, which is unfortunate. You know, I wish it didn't happen, but it did happen. So that's why it's important for us to pay attention to all of this. All right, so the first thing that I have for you is the first step, the first stage of all of this, which is global. Here's the headline. Attack of the debt tsunami. Coronavirus pushes global debt to record highs. This from CNBC.com. The coronavirus crisis pushed global debt levels to a new high of over $272 trillion in the third quarter. The Institute for International Finance said, as it warned of the attack of the debt tsunami, the institute said global debt would break new records in the coming months to reach $277 trillion by the end of the year. Remember, this is global. This will represent a debt to GDP ratio of 365%. Quote, spurred by a sharp rise in government and corporate borrowing as the COVID-19 pandemic wears on, the global debt increased by $15 trillion in the first 3 quarters of 2020 and now stands above $272 trillion, end quote, the IIF said in its latest global debt monitor out on Wednesday. Among advanced nations, debt surged about 432% of GDP in the third quarter, a 50% point increase from 2019. The United States, which has implemented one of the biggest stimulus packages in the world, account for almost half of this rise. And let's just remember that they're talking about doing another stimulus. Now, some details did come out here in the past few days, which I did not include in this report. But the gist of it is that they're going to give more money in the PPP loans and other institutions, but they will not send you any money. They're not going to send you the $1,200 plus dependents this time around. They're only going to give it to the businesses. And as you heard the first person come out and said that they were only giving it to special interest, all right, and campaign contributors, pretty much the buddies of the DC area, Washington, DC area, they're the only ones getting the help. But going back to the global issue, $277 trillion in debt, a GDP ratio of 365%. So think about this. How desperate are they going to have to not only make the United States or the American people to accept a global digital currency, but the entire world as well? How desperate are we going to have to be through the dark winter? I still hold a belief that through the dark winter, they will try to accomplish this, because people are begging right now to have a normal life again. And now we're going to a second lockdown. So how is it going to be in the next few months? How is next year going to be? People have been making fun and, making memes about how bad this year has been and how ready they are for it to be over. But what if next year is even worse than this? What if the unemployment grows even more? Or what if we have a fight, a civil war, something like that, breaking out because of these new COVID passes? Because if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on this one because I'm not 100% sure, but I kind of have a faint memory that over 70% of the people of the United States will not take the vaccine. So if only 40% take the vaccine, or excuse me, 30% take the vaccine, the other 70% are going to fight it. And they have, they has come out, people have come out and say, which, this is people like in city councils and stuff like that. They have said that they will go into people's houses, test people for COVID, and if they have COVID, they're going to drag them out of the house and put them in a facility until they're COVID free. How is it going to be when the military is actually going to bring out the vaccine and they're going to tell everybody that they must put it on? Otherwise, they can't go to work because it's coming. If they're already making you wear masks at your work and they're having all these stupid rules over COVID-19, how stupid are they going to start acting after the vaccine comes out? What about schools? Something that I've mentioned here in the past. We all have children, okay? And they're going to force us to put the vaccine on them because they already force us to put vaccine on them when they're younger. All right, every year their vaccine card has to be up to date. Otherwise, they can't go to school. Have you thought about that? A lot of people have been struggling because they don't have, single parents have been struggling a lot because they don't have anybody to take care of their kids. Parents who live together and have kids, they're struggling as well because they both have to be at work. And when they have small children, it's very difficult. It's very hard. Okay? And the kids are suffering too because their grades are going lower. They're not learning as well. They're more distracted because they're at home. I mean, it really sucks to just be looking at the screen all day. All right? And as you know, I did the virtual learning with my kids, trying to help them out with their homework. And wow, I mean, it sucked. You just stuck there for at least 6 hours doing homework when you have to be at work. All right? And the expectations that the school have sometimes are a little bit ridiculous. But anyways, continuing from my little rant, the next headline that I have for you is what's happening in the United States, what's happening to the US dollar. All right? And while I read this, I want you to have in mind what I've said about the World Economic Forum, what they said about the United States not being the superpower in the next 10 years, that by 2030, the U.S. will not be the leading superpower of the world, but rather a handful of nations will be, about 10 of them. And that sounds mighty biblical. The dollar is being systematically destroyed, and we're on a path that leads to hyperinflation. This from the economiccollapseblog.com. If we keep treating the US dollar like it's toilet paper, it is just a matter of time before our entire financial system goes down the tubes. At this moment, the dollar is still the primary reserve currency of the world, and the fact that we control it is an absolutely massive advantage for us. Because the rest of the globe uses dollars to trade with one another, that creates a tremendous amount of artificial demand for our currency, and it keeps that value of our currency elevated at a level that is much higher than it otherwise would be. But now that we are starting to act like the Weimar Republic in their heyday, it is only going to be a matter of time before everyone else on the planet starts abandoning the US dollar in droves. We are literally killing a golden goose, and most Americans do not understand what is happening. The remarks that John Williams made about hyperinflation during a recent interview with Greg Hunter have created quite an uproar, but the truth is that Williams is right on target. We're on the exact same path that Zimbabwe and Venezuela and so many others have already gone down, and the very foolish decision that we have been making are only going to end in complete and utter disaster. And that is very true, because as we keep spending all this money, as we keep creating all these dollars out of thin air, that's only creating hyperinflation for us here in the United States. If we were not the world reserve currency, we will have already seen hyperinflation in this country a long time ago. All right, Mexico and the United States will probably not look very different, because we live on debt, and that is something that we really have to break, because otherwise it's gonna break us. All right, and not only that, what the Federal Reserve is doing, they're pretty much artificially stimulating the economy by pumping a bunch of money in it, okay, but also giving money to the government to where they can continue, doing their what they do. They continue, let the government continue working by the money that they're printing, because the Federal Reserve, they're buying the bonds. And what that means is that when they buy the bonds, then they give money to the government, and that allows the government to continue on. They get revenue from taxes from us, they get from the bonds, they get from tariffs and everything like that. So the government has different streams of revenue, but it doesn't have enough to pay everyone's EBTs, to pay everyone's Medicaid and Medicare, to pay everyone's retirement, and do all these things that they're trying to do. And now that the Biden administration coming in, saying that they're going to spend all this money, which first they have to go through Congress, but let's just say that they did do it, all right? That they did come through and they did pass another stimulus that included sending Americans $1,200 plus, their dependents. That would, let's just say they do another $3 trillion. That's not the only spending that he wants to do. He wants to do it for COVID too. He wants to do it for for the Green New Deal and stuff like that. So, on the books, or on the schedule, really on the calendar, it is scheduled for there to be a massive amount of money being spent. Oh, and not only that, he wants to forgive about $10,000 worth of student loans. I mean, why not just print another $1.5 trillion and forgive everybody's student loans, if that's the case, right? I mean, we're on a spending spree right now. I mean, might as well throw it in there. All of this is already falling down. Might as well take advantage of what's going on. But anyways, I do want to play you a video or a clip from the interview with Greg Hunter. And it's really, the entire interview is interesting, but for time I can only play you so much. So if you want the video, ask me in the comment section. Some people have actually asked for the interviews that I put on here because they want to listen to the entire thing. So if you want to do that, I'm more than happy to give you that information. So here's that video.
And the whole thing, a lot of people are just thinking it's a hoax. I mean, they're just doing this to bring on this reset. That's what they're out talking about, the Great Reset. Yep. Martin Armstrong says they want to bring on communism. This is not about a health issue. It just seems to me like that. But let's talk about the economy now going forward, what you see now. Let's see, what do you see now with all this turmoil that I laid out at the beginning of this interview?
Bear with me, even with the political turmoil put to aside for the moment. You have seen the markets respond as though they expect this is going to turn the economy. My point is that it's not going to turn the economy, even as represented, at least not soon, because what has happened to the economy has been very severe structurally. You've had a lot of companies go out of business, particularly small companies. A lot of people have suffered, and we're going to have more of that going ahead. So that let's say President Trump does end up reelected, he's not going to have any choice but to increase stimulus to try and help the economy and help people. If President-elect Biden takes over, he's going to have to do the same, but they're already promising massive stimulus. And where it gets really scary is that if the Democrats can take control of the Senate as well as the House, as well as the White House, where they have complete control of the government, then you talk of this reset and all the massive programs that'll be forthcoming. The stimulus there is just going to be unbelievable. And what has been already accepted by some of the more radical members of the Democrat Party is the concept of the modern monetary theory, which simply is you just print whatever money you need to spend whatever you need it to spend on, and don't worry about it. Now, I would argue against that, and I've argued against that for a couple of years now, as a brilliant concept, or not being a brilliant concept. You don't want to do that because it will trigger inflation.
Hyperinflation like we have never seen in America before. That's why it's important for you to have precious metals. Maybe you will not be able to trade with someone for their goods, but as I've said many times, you will be able to trade with the government when they come out with a new currency. If we end up like Zimbabwe, right? And let's say the powers that be, whether, whoever you want to name it, right now we're saying the Great Reset because that's what the World Economic Forum wants to do. Let's say that they want to put pressure on us. They want to hurt us enough to where we are going to be bending to their will because, they're controlling the supply chain. We have rolling blackouts. We have all these things going on. And we want to say, all right, I'm giving in. I want this to stop. I'll submit to whatever you want. A lot of people will do that, in the first week. But the real challenge is going to be everyone else who will fight it, hopefully to the end or for a longer period of time. But that's why it's important for us to have this culture of preppers, this community of preppers that continues to grow and prepares on principles, on foundations, on fundamentals that are not just someone's opinions, but it's something that is solid. That if somebody starts from scratch, they all take the same path because that is the right way to go. That's what I want to establish with this Amendment Survival. So I need your help. Please share this information with your friends and family. All right, so now that we talked about that, okay, and of course the preparedness of all of this is kind of late for some people. But if you're still working and you still have regular hours, then consider yourself very blessed because a lot of people are not able to. Now, of course, there's always going to be people who are going to milk the system as much as they can, and they're going to wait for the last week when their unemployment is going to end to find a job. Okay, so in the area that I live, there's still some jobs out there. There's many. Is it easy to get them? Not always. It depends, if you have a good, I guess you can say a good work ethic and a good working record. But anyways, the point is that it depends on what you're looking for. If you're willing to go to a job that pays a little bit less just so you can start having money coming in, then that's what you have to do. If you have to get more than one job, then that's what you have to do. It is very crucial right now that you don't let this winter make you homeless, because winters are starting to get more brutal. All right, the cold is coming in a way that it has not come before. There's scientists from Russia and other places saying that we're going to go through an ice age, and it feels that way. Where I live, we're not used to temperatures in the 20s, and this entire week has been in the teens. So yes, weather will get worse, and you becoming homeless during the winter with little children is really going to suck. So don't let that happen to you. I know there's some places like New York or California or others who are just completely shutting down. They're not letting you work. That's where the rise of the people is going to come, because they're going to make you miserable to the point where you have to retaliate. And it takes everyone, all right, working together to where either you impeach that governor, that city council, whoever it is that's imposing those rules, and remove them peacefully. Okay, especially they're being bought out by somebody so they can have a lockdown. But anyways, the point is that we must do something about it. Where I live, I'm very fortunate. There's not any restrictions, at least not in the time being. But I do plan that if they do tell us that we have to shut down places here in Alabama because, just because it's safer at home, I do plan on going to protest at my local city building, the I forget the name. But anyways, the point is, or the courthouse, because we cannot let this happen to our neighbors. We cannot let this happen in America because they're not going to give you any money. And even if they did, it would still be the wrong thing to do. It's still going to, affect us in the long run. But right now, if you have no money because they have locked you down and they don't want you to work, but they want you to stay home, how in the world are you going to pay for everything? That's how the rise is going to come. That's how they're going to make you suffer, so you will bend to their will and then do what they want to do. Now, the last one is what is happening here in the United States. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I almost skipped it. The next one is a video that I want to show you what a billionaire is doing. And I got this video from Sear Hedge. Billionaire Malone buys hard assets, farmland, fears inflationary dollar debasement. As I mentioned, that's from Sear Hedge. Here's that video.
But specific to what we're talking about right now, we actually also spent some time talking about the current environment, given the virus, given the impact it's had on the economy, and how remember, he's one of the wealthiest men in the country, the largest landowner, owns an enormous amount of the state of Maine and lumber and things of that nature. And I asked him, has the current environment and what's been done in terms of spending to deal with the relief that businesses have needed, has that changed the way he thinks about allocating capital?
In my opinion, we've survived this because of enormous fiscal and monetary stimulus. And I've got to believe this will lead to devaluation of currencies, that hard assets, will increase in value in currency terms. I'm not sure I'm going to call this inflation, but it'll look like and feel like inflation. And I think we're seeing it in housing. This unrealistically low interest rate environment, which has been necessary now in order to avoid worse problems, it's hard for me to believe that it won't be followed by a period of currency devaluation. So personally, I've been trying to invest or diversify into hard assets. I think things I've bought this last year, I've bought substantial interest in multifamily housing, primarily in the U.S. And I've bought irrigated farms because commodities were cheap and farms were at a low cycle in value, and I'd always wanted to have some irrigated farming, so now I'm growing potatoes.
John Malone always surprises, doesn't he, Jim? But it's interesting to listen to him talk about his worries about a devalued currency and what. And by the way, we've got a lot more spending to come. At least many people hope there is more spending to come, given the period we're in right now and the aid that is potentially needed by small and medium-sized businesses, not to mention municipalities and states around the country.
That is fascinating. Ag land.
Yeah. I mean, remember, he already owns he owns timber. He's the largest single landowner in the United States of personal, private land.
That's what you buy in hyperinflation. When you think there's hyperinflation.
Yeah, it's funny because he didn't say he wanted to call it necessarily inflation, but he did believe fully in currency devaluation, which would essentially have that effect.
All right, so it's very important what you just listened to, because if you have money, you need to go ahead and start doing what he's doing. Okay, get hard assets. Real estate is always number one, because that will always hold its value. Whether you're going through the Great Depression or not, all you're gonna have to pay, and you have to pay it in cash. Don't do it on payments. It has to be bought off, cash up front, or you have to pay taxes once a year. Okay, that's the way to do it. That's the correct way to do it, because otherwise, if you lose your job, then you cannot pay the payments anymore. Taxes is only once a year, and that's a little more manageable to do, all right? But as he said, he is fearing that the dollar is going to decrease in value. What that makes, or what happens because of that, everything increases. The value of everything increases, all right? What you used to buy for $1, now you're gonna buy it for $2. I have done the math for you here when they say that the groceries will increase 400%. If we go back in time where things have increased 400%, we go back to 1970. And now what you could buy in 1970 for $640, now you have to spend in today's dollars over $3,000 for the same thing. It's the same thing if we look into the future. What you can buy with $640 now, in the future, 400% increase, it would be the equivalent of what you can buy right now with $120. That's how hyperinflation works. And people do not see it until it hits the consumer place, until it hits the grocery stores. That's when it hits. That's when you actually realize that you're going through hyperinflation, when you cannot afford as much as you used to. The next thing that I have for you is very important because it's what's happening in America. And the next few months, in the next year, there's a lot of warning signals that are being flashing and that have been warning you here as well. So you have about a year to prepare for all of this, give or take, depending on your financial situation. So hopefully you're doing still good. If you're still doing good, but if not, then you need to get some help. All right? Don't be afraid to ask for help, especially right now since we are going through all of this. We haven't seen this much suffering in Thanksgiving since the Great Depression of the 1930s. This from the greateconomiccollapseblog.com. In my entire lifetime, there has never been a Thanksgiving like this. 39 million Americans don't have enough to eat right now. More than 70 million claims for unemployment benefits have been filed so far during this calendar year. And people are waiting in lines for hours at food banks all over the nation just for some Thanksgiving handouts. If you and your family have plenty of turkey to eat, you should be very thankful because many Americans can no longer even take Thanksgiving dinner for granted these days. On Tuesday, vehicles were lined up for hours in New Jersey as people waited to receive pre-packaged Thanksgiving meals at a local food bank. There are a lot of nice vehicles in this picture. Many of those individuals are probably accustomed to living comfortable middle-class lifestyles, but just like I warned in my new book, they are suddenly in need of food because this economic downturn has turned their world completely upside down. And this is just the beginning. Thanks to the new lockdowns that are being instituted all over the country, the number of Americans that are filing for unemployment benefits is starting to rise again. Overall, more than 70 million new claims for unemployment benefits have been filed in 2020. Now an economic collapse has officially arrived and all of the things that I have been warning about are starting to happen one right after the other. The perfect storm is upon us and most Americans still do not understand the horrors that lie ahead. That is exactly how the Venezuelan people felt when they finally figured out that hyperinflation had hit their country. They were still going to the grocery stores trying to find something to eat after very many people just ransacked the entire place. I have played videos for you here in the past about Venezuela, about how people are so desperate that they actually robbing live chickens from a truck. I have shown you the desperation where they actually have food at the warehouses and they're passing it out where everybody's pushing on each other and they just finally have to throw the food into the crowd because everybody's getting too desperate to go ahead and receive it. They want to be the first ones in line. They're skipping everybody else and then chaos breaks out. And then the people who are handling the food, they're actually in danger because they can be stampeded on, they can be shot, they can get hurt. So all they do is just grab it and chuck it. And then people fight for it on the ground. It might be funny to you right now, but when you live that kind of situation, it's not very funny at all. I have people who actually have laughed in the comment section making fun of them. And it's very unfortunate that people have actually done that. So do not think that this cannot get worse than it already is. Because 2021 is a fresh new year with its own obstacles. And we cannot take for granted the things that we have now. So if you have money for whatever purchase you want to make right now, I would suggest that you do what he's doing. Have hard assets. Real estate and gold and silver are really good assets to have right now. And remember, gold, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. I'm not talking about go get a stock on gold. I'm saying buy gold and keep it at home. because for this simple fact, if nothing makes you think about gold, or if something is going to change your mind of buying gold because you don't want to buy it, is this. People in Venezuela, all right, before their hyperinflation happened, gold was accessible. It cost about, let's just say here, like in the United States, $1,800. Once the hyperinflation hit, the same piece of 1 ounce gold, then now it costs over 13 million of their dollars. So people who had more than 1 ounce, people who actually held kilos, they became billionaires. Those are the people who are doing really good, because when you in that kind of environment, okay, when you go from just your regular everyday life to your assets being worth a lot more, to where they're in the billions, when the entire country's minimum wage is only $400,000, and I say only because for us it's like $3, $2, something like that, and that's a month. They're getting paid $2 a month. But when you have $13 billion of their dollars, okay, then you're doing pretty good. In Venezuela, it costs over $400,000 just to get some eggs, a 12-pack of eggs. Can you imagine working so hard all month only to be able to eat eggs? And that's not every day. And also it depends on how much people you have in your family. They have had help from the government, but the food that they send them is not enough, and very few or very far in between. They get one box today, they may not get one for another 2 or 3 weeks. And whatever is in that box, it could only last them about 3 days. So in the meantime, they just have to do without. They have to find different ways to do things. Another thing that they're seeing in Venezuela is sickness, because since they cannot afford, the water bill anymore, they cannot shower regularly. And because of that, they're bringing disease. So that is something that you have to consider when something like this is going on, is how you're going to bathe, how you're going to clean your skin so you don't have some type of infection. You may be used to, running hot showers right now or sitting in the tub for fun. But later on, you may not even have a trickle coming through your faucet. Those are the sort of things that you have to prepare for. So pay attention, prepare, and be ready. All right. If you're starting off right now, if you've never prepared in your life, you're new to this channel, and you like the information and how I presented it, and you want to start preparing, the very first thing that you want to do is to create an alliance between you and your family. Your brothers, sisters, cousins, in-laws, just family members that you have, and friends too. Once you have your alliance, then you can move on to the next thing, which is food. But the reason you want to start with alliance is because then you can plan how much food you need. And it's very simple. You need 2 years worth of food. And that means for everyone, not just for one person. 2 years worth of food for everyone. But you don't just stock up on things, okay? Because stocking up on things means that you preparing for a certain period of time where things are going to get bad, but eventually we'll get back to normal. Because people don't think beyond what they have stocked up on. Yes, you have 6 months worth of food, but what are you going to do after 6 months? Are you going to start rationing your food right off the bat, or are you going to wait until you have 1 day left or a week left on your stockpile? How much does your food have to get depleted before you start thinking that you're going to have to put some food on the ground, let it grow, and live off of that before you completely run out of what you have in front of you? Have you even considered what if something happens that you have to move away from your home, even though you have all your preps there, to a different place where you have no family, you have no friends, you have no connections? Have you had that thought? All those things can be taken care of. The last time we had a Great Depression was 100 years ago. So it's not like you don't have time. That is just a lifetime. What you can do today could possibly benefit your great-grandkids. We had a world war in the 1930s. It's been about 100 years since we had a world war. So we've had about 100 years to prepare for it. Are we ready for it? Are we ready for nukes to fall on the ground? Are we ready for about 10 miles from the U.S. border to be occupied? For anybody to try to do a beachhead? And, you know, start bringing supplies and airplanes and all those things in order for them to rule the air. They start having troops coming through the homes. Have American people fight back. You know, which could potentially be a greater firepower, because if only civilians are fighting, all we have is guns. The enemy could have missiles, they could have mortars, they could have air support, they could have a lot of things. We will look like how Afghanistan people or Afghanistan terrorists look like when we go over there and fight. Our soldiers had the best equipment, had air support, had you know, vehicles and everything. As far as we know, Al-Qaeda and all of them, all they had was, you know, some donkeys, some horses. I don't know how they moved around, but the point is that they didn't have air support. They didn't have Reaper drones flying around. They didn't have F-16s going through and dropping bombs. It could be the same thing that can happen here to the American citizens if we had another war. We've had 100 years. We had 12 years since the last Great Depression, and we had 19 years since the last terrorist attack. So buying land, having at the very least 2 years worth of food, having everything set up for you to just house livestock, you know, for you to just go buy them real quick or trade them real quick and start having self-sufficient system running. You've had 19 years. You've had 12 years. It's not like this has, you know, we just went through something a year ago. I mean, even though we're going through it now, they say nothing happens to where it's a big significance, things to get back to normal. By the time that we get to the next Great Depression, something like this that could be even worse than we've had however long it is from now to then. Same thing. I've been warning you about war for a long time now. For months, which is going to be my next podcast. It is possible that we're going to go to war next year, in the next 5 years, or in the next 10 years. We don't have a dead set date, but we are seeing what is happening, and we can kind of point out what could happen. So if you have not prepared at all, then you have either a year, or technically months, but anyways, a year, 5 years, or 10 years. Hopefully 10 years, because 10 years, there's a lot you can do in 10 years, more than you can do in 1 year. But a lot of people won't be able to do a lot for the simple fact that we're going through an economic collapse right now. And if we go through hyperinflation, then you can forget it. People are going to start fleeing the country in droves. It happened in Venezuela. It happens all throughout the southern border, or, you know, all the South America. It happens in the Middle East. It happens in the African countries. People migrate because they can no longer live. It's either stay there and die or go somewhere else and try to find a better life. A lot of Americans do not understand that concept, because America has always been the place to go. But once America is wiped out, where are we going to go? Where are we going to go? Have you thought about that? Where are you actually going to go? Because think about it. If you go anywhere south, all right, if you go to Mexico, not only are you going to be greeted by people who are going to really make fun of you because you did not want you didn't want immigrants to come to this country legally. You're going to be forced to go there illegally. All right. You're going to have to face the government, and you're going to have to face the cartels. All right. They're going to see that you're an American, especially if you have pretty daughters or wives. They're going to try to take them from you. And you know what happens after that? Have you thought about those things? What about going north? Right now it's being said that actually Canada has been bought out by the Chinese. And Trudeau is 100% into the whole reset thing. So even if you do escape up there, they're a NATO member. That means that they will be in the crosshairs too. You know, they don't stab America in the back. But let's say that they did. Would they let Americans go in? Can you go further north? No, you can't. If you try to go on the other side of the globe, will you even be able to? Because airplanes won't be flying if there's a war going on. So there's a lot of variables that we have to think about, and a lot of things that could happen. And let's not forget, an EMP could happen. That would be the one most destructive thing that can happen, actually worse than a nuclear disaster. Because even, let's say that we did have a nuclear detonation in the United States. Let's say they do 5. Those are going to be localized. And there's going to be other places in the country who are going to be okay, quote unquote. That will disrupt the supply chain. But the point is that it won't be as big of a problem to recover from it as it would an EMP. So let's get this conversation started. Go ahead and start talking with your friends and family. Get them to understand all these points. Okay, I had comments. You can read them in the comment section. Somebody said that they have tried to tell their family to prepare, but their family thinks they're crazy, and actually their sister-in-law is the only one prepping as well. As far as I understand on how the comment is worded, everybody's, he's preparing for his family, and she's preparing for her family. Which I would say you should come together and create a team. Because it's going to be easier if both of you are working together for one goal, as opposed to both of you working separately. You'll be able to convince more of your family members if you actually come together and say, look, this is what's going on. This is what we got to do to protect each and every one of us. Because what's going to happen the day, God forbid, something did happen major that we couldn't talk to each other and, we didn't have a plan. You can go about it that way. You can go about it different ways. But the point is that you need to work together. We need to become a family. We have to become a community of preppers. As I mentioned, I have big, big plans for this community, but I need your help. Please share this with your friends and family. Please share this in all your social media. And please remember that I do have a store that pretty much helps me that helps me fund this podcast, that helps me get the equipment, get things that I need done for the website and printing free books. All that stuff costs money. So when you're able to buy stuff from the store, that comes back for you, that benefits each and every one of you. So I would really appreciate it if you can make a contribution. You can buy something. We have a Patreon account. You can go on there and help us out, make a donation, or there's different ways that you can help. But I would really appreciate it if you would. So again, my name is Jose Prado, and remember, always ready.
The Man-Made Survival Show.